아서 C. 클라크 3001 The Final Odyssey 3001 Chapter 4 A Room with a View Frank Professor Anderson think you are strong enough to go for a little walk. I am very pleased to hear it. Do you have the expression still crazy? No, but I can guess what it means. Paul had so adapted to low gravity that the long stride he was taking seemed perfectly normal. Alpha G he had estimated just right to give a sense of well-being. They met only a few people on their walk, all of them strangers, but everyone gave a smile of recognition. By now, Paul had himself hit a trace of smugness. I must be one of the best-known celebrities in this world. That should be a great help when I decide what to do with the rest of my life. At least another century, if I can believe Anderson. The corridor along which they were walking along, completely featureless apart from occasional numbered door, which bearing one of the universal record panel. Paul had followed the Intra for perhaps 200 meters when he came to a sudden halt, shocked because he had not realized something so blindingly obvious. The space station must be enormous, he exclaimed. Indra smiled back at him. Didn't you have a saying? You aren't seen anything yet. Nothing, he corrected, absent-mindedly. He was still trying to estimate the scale of this structure when he had another surprise. Who would have imagined a space station large enough to boast a subway, admittedly miniature one, with a single smash coach capable of seating only a dozen passengers? Observation Lounge 3, ordered Intra, and they drew silently and swiftly away from the terminal. Paul checked the time on the elaborate wristband, whose functions he was still exploring. One minor surprise had been that the whole world was now on universal time. The confusing patchwork of time zones had been swept away by the advent of global communication. There had been much talk of this back in the 21st century, and it had even been suggested that the solar should be replaced by sidereal time. Then, during the course of the year, the sun would move right around the clock, setting at the time it had risen 6 months earlier. However, nothing had come of this equal time in the sun proposal, or of even more vociferous attempt to reform the calendar. The particular job it had been cynical suggest would have to wait for somewhat major advance in technology. Someday, surely, one of the God's minor mistakes would be corrected, and the Earth's orbit would be adjusted to give every year 12 months of 30 exactly equal days. As far as Paul could judge by speed and elapsed time, they must have traveled at least 3 kilometers before the vehicle came to a silent stop. The doors opened, and the bland auto voice intoned, "Have a good view, 35% cloud cover today." At least, thought Paul, you are getting near the outer wall. But there was another mystery. Despite the distance he had gone, neither of the strength nor the direction of the gravity had altered. He could not imagine a spanning time station spinning space stations so huge that the gravity vector would not be changed by such displacement. Could we really be on some planet wall-to-wall, but he could feel lighter, usually much lighter, on any other habitable world in the solar system. When the outer door of the terminal opened, the fool found himself entering a small airlock. He realized that he must indeed be in space. But where was the spacesuit? He looked around anxiously. He was against all his instinct to be so close to Beckham, naked and unprotected. One experience of that was enough. "You are nearly there," said Intra reassuringly. The last door opened, then he was looked out into the utter blackness of space through a huge window that was covered vertically and horizontally. He felt like a goldfish in each bow and hoped that the designers of this audacious piece of engineering knew exactly what they were doing. They certainly possessed better structural materials than had existed in his time. Though the stars must be shining out there, his light-adapted eye could see nothing but black emptiness beyond the curve of the great window. As he started to walk toward it to a wide view, Intra restrained him and pointed straight ahead. "Look carefully," she said. "Don't you see?" Paul blinked and stared into the night. Steadily. Surely it must be an illusion, even heaven forbid. A crack in the window. He moved his head from side to side. No, it was real. But that what could it be? He remembered the Euclid definition. A line had length, but no thickness. The spanning the whole height of the window, the obviously continuous out of sight above and below, was a thread of light, quietly easy to see when you look for it. It was so one-dimensional that the word thin could not even be applied. However, it was not completely featureless. There were fairly visible spots of greater brilliance at irregular intervals along the length, like drops of water on a spider's web. Paul continued walking toward the window, and the view expanded until at last he could see what lay below him. He was familiar enough, the whole continent of Europe and much of northern Africa, just as he had seen them many times from space. So he was in orbit after all, probably the equatorial one, at the highest of at least 1,000 kilometers. Indra was looking at him with a quizzical smile. "Go closer to the window," she said very softly, "so that you can look straight down. I hope you have a good head for height." What a silly thing to say to an astronaut, Paul told himself as he moved toward. As I ever suffered from vertigo, I wouldn't be in this business. The thought had barely passed through his mind when he cried, "My God!" and involuntarily stepped back from the window. Then braced himself. He dared to look again. He was looking down the distant Mediterranean from the base of a cylindrical tower, whose gently curving wall indicated a diameter of several kilometers. But that was nothing compared to its length, for it tapered away down, until it disappeared into a mist down there over Africa. He assumed that it was continued all the way to the surface. How high are we? He whispered. 2,000 K. But now look upward. This time, it was not much a shock. He had expected what he would see. The tower dwindled away until it became a glittering thread against the blackness of the space. And he did not doubt that it continued all the way to the geostationary orbit, 36,000 kilometers above the equator. Such fantasies had been well known in Paul's day. He had never dreamed he would see the reality and be living in it. He pointed toward the distant thread reaching up from the earthern horizon. There must be another one. Yes, the Asian Tower, it must look exactly the same of them. How many are there? Just four, equally spaced around the decade. Africa, Asia, America, Pacifica. The last one's almost empty. Only a few hundred levels completed. Nothing to see except water. Pool was still observing this stupendous concept when a disturbing thought occurred to him. There are already thousands of satellites at all sorts of altitude in my time. How do you avoid collision? Indra looked slightly embarrassed. You know, I never thought about that. It's not my field. She paused for a moment, clearly searching her memory. Then her face brightened. I believe there was a big cleanup operation. Centuries ago, there just aren't any satellites below the stationary orbit. That made sense. Paul told himself. That wouldn't be needed. The four gigantic towers would provide all the facility once provided by thousands of satellites and space stations. There had never been any accident, any collision with spaceships leaving Earth or re-entering the atmosphere. Indra looked at him with surprise, but they don't anymore. She pointed to the ceiling. All the air spaceports are where they should be, up there, on the outer ring. I believe it's 400 years since the last rocket lifted up from the surface of the Earth. Paul was still digesting this when a trivial anomaly caught his attention. His training as an astronaut had made him alert to anything out of the ordinary in space that might be a matter of life or death. The sun was out of view, high overhead, but its rays streaming down through a great window painted a brilliant band of light on the floor underfoot. Cutting across that band at an angle was another, much fainter one, so that the frame of the window threw a double shadow. Paul had to go almost down to his knees so that he could peer up at the sky. He had thought himself beyond surprise, but the spectacle of two suns left him momentarily speechless. What's that? He gasped when he had recovered his breath. Oh, haven't you been told? That's Lucifer. Us has another sun? Well, it doesn't give us much heat, but it put the moon out of business. Before the second mission went there to look for you, that was the planet Jupiter. I knew I would have much to learn in this new world, Paul told himself, but just how much I never dreamed.